Bow, bow, bow. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Hello everyone, welcome to the 5th monthly update. It is June 2022 and I hope you've all had a good month, and welcome. I've had a very productive month, and so I suppose I should just tell you about things. Not much has happened other than me doing and watching stuff, but so I don't really have much of an update other than the things I've done artistically. So I'll start with showing you all of the paintings / one sculpture, but basically all of the visual arts I have done. So here we are. So this is June 2022. It's the first link in the the first link in the description. So if you want to come and have a look at these yourself, you can. But I'll start with this one. Number 14. It's alright. It's not my favourite, I'll tell you, but it's okay. Number 15 is this. Better. I like all the red, but then again, red is just the best. And then we have these two, which are Autonomous Composition 1 and 2. And what I did to make these is I dropped pieces of newspaper that I'd cut up, black, because there was a sheet which was almost entirely black, which is really useful because I just cut out black squares. Dropped them randomly on the canvas, glued them wherever they landed, unless they landed directly on top, like overlapping another one. The two rules are, actually, really only one rule, is that it can't overlap another. And I dropped 4. Obviously, if they dropped the other way up, it didn't really matter. I just put my fingers and thumb at at the corners, to remember where it was, and I glued the back and glued it on. And then I drew parallel lines from the edges. I painted parallel lines from the edges of each square to the edge of the canvas, and that produced Autonomous Composition 1 and Autonomous Composition 2. And these, I haven't been telling you the dates of these. Number 14 was on June 1st, or the 31st of May to the 1st of June. Number 15 was the 2nd of June. Autonomous Composition 1 and 2, the 6th of June. The Winds was also June 6th. This one's alright. This picture isn't particularly good, but it's alright. It's not my favourite painting. I did Autonomous Composition 3, which I did slightly differently to the others. Rather than dropping paper, I just dropped the ruler that I was using directly on the canvas and drew lines wherever the inch side landed, and just did that several times, and then continued those lines to the edges of the canvas, and then filled in alternatively going around different colours. Started with red and blue, this kind of greyed down blue, and then a more vibrant blue and yellow, and then just this kind of mint green and white, which I didn't paint white, I just left the canvas bare, and that's how I did that. Then Race, which is a birth in the country. I don't really like this one, but I did it, and so it's here. Walden, I did very interestingly, in my opinion. Basically, it was really sunny, but I wanted to paint anyway, and so I just went outside and walked a bit down. There's a grassy bit near where I live, and so I just set up my easel in the grassy bit and I took all my paints and brushes and stuff in a bag with me, and just painted. A couple of people stopped and came and had a look. Most people didn't, which is fine, whatever. I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for me. But it was nice and sunny outside, so I thought I'd go and paint. And I wanted to go somewhere else, not just in my garden. And also my sun, it was early in the morning, so the sun hadn't reached my garden yet. But it had reached this stretch of grass, and so I went and painted there. And I'm quite happy with it. I like the swirls, especially. I named it Walden, because that was the first word that came into my head. I knew it was a book. I didn't know anything about the book, but I knew it was a book. And so I named it after the book, because I looked up what the book was about, and apparently the book is about the writer writes about he's sort of moved out into the country for more, like, I don't know, inspiration or something, which is pretty much exactly what I did to paint the painting, so kind of coincidence, but I named it Walden after that. Next one was Official Form, which started differently. I started basically, I put some kind of purpley kind of stuff down on the canvas, and I didn't like it, and so I mixed it all over until it was one completely even colour, mopped it off of the canvas with just kitchen roll, which you can see kind of up here. You can't see it very well in this picture, but this sort of stain here, this lighter bit, is kitchen roll, and you can kind of see the pattern, which is the exact same pattern in another painting, States of Matter Solid. I did the same thing, and that's what that pattern is. It's the same pattern there. And then I basically wiped on all this white paint, just literally just pouring it into my hands, which is why you can see fingerprints all around here and around the edges. And I basically just smoothed it out. And then I dripped just red in a kind of Jackson Pollocky style on top. I was intending to add more, but I really liked how it looked with just very simple kind of thing. And so that's what I did. That was on June the 7th. And then I did on the 8th of June. This is more Jackson Pollock. Again, started as a different painting, because you can see there's more the fields of colour in the background. Whereas Jackson Pollock would usually just do it on bare canvas, actually. And sometimes he'd just paint a flat background. But that's what this was. And then I just dripped on top of it with black and then white and then this green colour to contrast with the red. And Matter, Where's It Coming From, is a quote from Withnail and I, 1987 comedy film, which I have talked about on the channel before. But that's what that was. And then number 16 is a very simple painting, and I quite like it. I just drew with pencil on the canvas, these squiggles, and I did these two shades of green, this lighter green here, and then this darker green. And then I just put these two solid black bits on, and that's it. It's a very simple painting, but I quite like it. And that was on the 8th of June as well. On the 9th of June, did Walden Part 2, which is a more simplified version. I did go out. I went out to do it in the garden. I didn't go out where I did it before, because by this point, I think I got up later on this day, and so I went out into the garden to do it, because the sun was in my garden by that point. It was very windy outside, and so I went out and did it really quickly and then came back in, which is why it's a lot more simplified. But I really like it. I think I actually prefer it to Walden Part 1, but I called it that because it's very similar. I went out to do it again, and I did these same swirls that I did in that painting, so it feels like it's a kind of theme. And so I just named it after the same painting. And now I tried to do, I did a few more figurative kind of paintings, because I want to be able to paint figuratively when I'm older. It'll never be my main, or at least I don't think it'll ever be my main thing, but I want to be able to do it when I want to, and so I did a few. Now they're not my favorite. This one at least is my least favorite of the ones I've done. It's called Businessman in a Landscape. It's alright, but it's not my favorite. But as you can see, here are the businessmen, and there is the landscape that they are in, and this brick wall. I also did a brick pattern on this pink wall back here. That's what this is, but you can't see it, so it was a complete waste of time. You can see bits of it like there, but you can't really see it, which means it was kind of a waste of time because it took me so long to do. But whatever. And that was on 8th to the 9th of June. Next was, this is my favourite of the figurative ones I've done, 9th of June. It's called Desert Sunset with Rocks, Tree, and Eye. There's a lot of Salvador Dali in this one, and this rock back here I literally stole from one of his paintings. I think it's called The Persistence of Memory, the one with the melting clocks. Well, there's a rock in the background, which is literally just this rock. I just stole it from his painting and put it in mine. Or obviously repainted it, so it's not perfect, but there it is. And then this tree is a remake of a drawing I did of a sculpture that I once saw at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. I went to the Yorkshire Sculpture Park with school. I've been there loads of times, and I intend to go there loads of times in the future. It's probably my favourite place on planet Earth that I've been to. But I did I went there with school once, and well, I went to school multiple times. But one of the times I went there with school, I took a load of paper and I drew a load of stuff. And this was one of the sculptures that was there, and I drew it. I don't know who did it, so I can't give credit. But if any of you know what this sculpture is, then tell me. But until then, it's my own. And then this is an eye that I also did because I wanted to do an eye, and there's the eye. And all this, most of the time I did this, I spent on this ground here, because if you look, there's so much texture in the ground, and that's because this one, and this is the process that's worked best for me, doing these figurative ones. It starts out as an abstract painting, so all this, there's so much texture and layers in the sand here, because this was effectively an abstract painting, which I then turned into a figurative painting. And I also really like the gradient up here with this red, and it goes to pink at the edges. It didn't really, my camera wasn't exactly friendly with it, and so you can see these kind of lines here where it doesn't really agree with the colour, because it's a very vibrant colour, this red, and the camera didn't really agree with it, so you can see these swirly lines which aren't there in the actual painting, but I can't really get rid of them, and I wanted to take a picture of it, and so I did. But this is my favourite of the figurative paintings that I've done. My second favourite of the figurative paintings I did is this one, which was the 10th to the 11th of June. A figure in a gallery. This one heavily inspired by Francis Bacon. And again, this started out as an abstract painting with all this black, well, not black, but all this kind of grey dirt kind of stuff in the background as this wall. And this here is actually, this painting here is actually a remake of a Francis Bacon painting called Painting from 1946, and I just recreated it here. This painting is, I think, 2/3. It continues its square painting. This one is a painting with black arch, or I think it's actually, that's the title I learned it under from that Matthew Collins documentary, but I don't think that's actually, it's actually Picture with a Black Arch by Kandinsky, and then this kind of figure here that I came up with, and all this is spray paint over the top, which is something Francis Bacon did. But yeah, so that's what that is. But I quite like this one. My second favourite of the figurative ones. And then moving more back into abstraction. It's not abstract, it is another figurative one. As you can see, it's a landscape, and it's called Landscape. But it's an abstract landscape. This is quite Kandinsky, actually. At least with the colours and stuff. But I quite like this one as well. Then moving completely back into abstraction with number 7, done on the 11th of June, which is one of the biggest paintings I've done. I also took a picture of it next to me, so you can see how big it is. It doesn't look as big on camera, but it is, as you can see, it's pretty big. It takes up almost an entire wall. It was still there. It was originally horizontal, going along the wall like that, and it was black and all spangly, and I didn't date it, and so I didn't know when I painted it. I knew it was at some point in, I think, 2019, but I didn't know when I painted it, and so I painted over it, because I wasn't particularly happy with it anyway, so I painted over it with this, and I'm a lot happier with it. I painted it outside as well, and some of it, not all of it, but some of it I painted with this really long brush, which I forgot to get. I'll go and get that for you, actually. So what I did is I got this, which is the longest brush I own anywhere, from my finger there, where my finger is, to the end. That's the brush. And then I attached it to the longest walking stick that I have. Or at least the longest walking stick that I didn't mind getting a bit of tape on. And I think it's actually the one I've had for the longest as well. And basically that's all this is. It's just a really, really long paintbrush. Which I could then paint from a distance, because with this painting, it obviously it's very big, and so I wanted to paint it from a distance. Not all of it I painted with from a distance. All of these big black marks, the kind of main marks, and these grey sections, like this kind of grey triangle and this grey bit down here, I did with just a paintbrush regularly on the canvas. All of the green I applied with this really long brush from a distance, and then all of the orange I applied with a scraper, which was recently broken actually. It just broke. Not just. But I was mixing paint with it on a palette, and it just, as you can see, it just kind of broke a little bit, which is a shame because I've had it for a long time. But it got a lot of work in, but since I've been using one of Mum's palette knives, which is a proper metal one. Although it's still loose, it's the actual blade comes out of the handle, but the blade isn't going to be breaking anytime soon. So yeah, but I'm very happy with this painting. The back of my ear has actually been all crusty recently. I think it's because it was quite sunny recently, and I went out and it's always crusty back there. There's a bit of skin for you. I once pulled off an entire replica of my ear made out of skin. Disgusting memories. Back of my ear is always crusty, but the sun always triggers it off. Next was the photograph that I took. Then subconscious composition 1. So far there isn't a 2, but there will be eventually. This here was a sketch, or at least these lines and circles was a sketch I did in a sketch pad, obviously, which I did just randomly without even thinking about it, drawing lines and circles. And then I transferred it to canvas. Firstly, I did all this very abstract but very white still background, and then drew these lines with a ruler and these circles with the stencils, and coloured these 3 circles red. But I'm quite happy with it. Looks a bit Kandinsky-ish, more simplified Kandinsky. And that was on the 12th of the 6th. Now this painting inspired my next painting, because one of my dad's friends came over, and I asked him what he thought of this, and just what he thought of my art in general. And he said, and it doesn't make any sense, it's a really stupid quote, but he said, I have a logical mind, so I don't understand it. That's what he said. Now that doesn't make sense, because if you had a logical mind, you would understand it. It's very simple logic. It's, I paint what I feel. It's very simple, but he evidently did not have a logical mind. But because of that, I named this next painting Logical Mind, painted from the 13th to the 14th of June. And this is probably my favourite painting I've ever done so far. I really like it. Particularly this kind of almost electric kind of blue. It feels kind of electric, along with the white. The blue and the white go really well together. I used a lot of drips and a lot of collage and layers. This bit of blue over here is actually the exact same blue used here, except I painted the blue. When I was doing this, I had a bit of the blue left over, but I didn't know where to put it on the canvas, and so I just painted it onto a piece of collage that I'd got, which is why there's so much texture in it. There's a load of layers of paint, and I just painted blue on top of it, and then stuck that down later. My favourite bit of collage here is down here. This was another sort of I guess I was just testing what colours work together on a piece of paper, and I glued that down there, and then some of the drips ran over on top of it, and it created this kind of effect that you see when say if a piece of, like, some car oil leaks out onto the pavement or something, and you see it kind of this kind of rainbow reflection, and it reminds me of that. But I use a lot of drips and a lot of layers of paint in this one, and this is probably my favourite painting. And a lot of collage, a lot of drips, a lot of collage, and a lot of layers makes this probably my favourite painting I've ever done. Bits of it were painted with that really long brush, like this kind of purple mark up here, and these white marks down here. And a lot of the grey in the background, but all this blue and this purple down here, and all the drips, of course, were done very controlled. with brushes and dripping it onto the canvas. But I really like this painting. This little red mark here was done with my finger. I just got red paint on my finger, just smeared it down. That's how I did that. But yeah, I really like all the. And then these red, well, not these red, these drippy, very drippy marks here and here were done. I just splodged the paint on the canvas and then get a piece of paper, kitchen roll, and dab it off and then put it back on and keep doing that and eventually drip on top of it. But that's probably my favourite painting I've ever done so far. And it's not even that big, it's quite small. It's probably my favourite size of canvas. I don't think I'll ever work on a smaller canvas. I think that's the minimum size. But it's a really nice size because I can get a lot of detail, but it's not so big that you can't see it in one go. And then I did this pole, which is an interactive sculpture. I also did a video of me interacting with it. But basically you pull this ping pong ball down and these bits, which are actually the furry part of like a collar. You know, if you have like a winter... hello. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. You commented like a minute ago. Hello, Digby. Welcome. Howdy. If you have any questions, ask them and I will answer them later. These furry things are... like if you have like a winter coat and the collar is all furry, that's what they are. And you pull that and it... well, I can show you here. This is what happens. That happens. So, that's that. And then the most recent painting that I've completed from the 26th of the 2nd, this one started ages ago, but I finished it just on the 15th of June. This started out, and you can see very little of it. I don't think you can see any of it, actually. But this started out as another grid. It's another in the grid series. I wish people would stop. I don't care that you're playing Dota 2. Go away, you Russian person. Right. This started out another in the grid series. It started as grid 5. But I didn't like it, and so I painted white over it and scratched into it and stuff and painted over the top of it. It's called The Postman's Journey. The reason it's called that is because I couldn't think of a title, and as I was standing there staring at it, thinking of a title, the postman arrived and put some mail through the thing. And I thought, I didn't say it because I didn't see him. He wasn't delivering a package, so I didn't have to open the door. He just put stuff through. But I thought as he was walking away, like, I wish you a good journey. I wish you good luck on your journey. And The Postman's Journey seemed a fitting title. I don't know why, but I really like this painting. There's detail in pretty much every place. Even where it just looks like it's a field of colour, there's still a lot of stuff going on. You can't see it really in this picture, but there's a lot of stuff going on. This big patch here is actually a bit of collage, which I then painted again, washes of white over the top of it. But this one I'm quite happy with as well. Probably my second favourite painting I've done this month. Aside, of course, for Logical Mind, which is probably my favourite painting I've done ever. And so that's all the paintings I've done, all the art I've done this month. All the paintings I've done and the sculpture that I've done this month. So after that, I uploaded a video of the sculpture. I did a bit of performance art called States of Discomfort, which is literally just me sat in a chair for 23 minutes, or kneeling, in fact, kneeling on a bench, which was really uncomfortable and really hurt my legs, and which is why it only lasted 23 minutes, because I simply could not last for much longer. But the reason it's States of Discomfort and then 1 in brackets is because I intend to do more. Maybe one where I'm standing for 23 minutes and one where I'm like spinning around for 23 minutes. I did something like that at college, actually. We were having a break. I don't know why the break lasted so long, but we were having a break for some reason. And I just stood in, it's not really a playground, but there's like this big wooden bench, which is like a huge square. It's a really inefficient bench, really, because you can only sit on the edges. It'd be better if it was like concentric squares going in, and then it'd be a really efficient, but it's a really inefficient chair. It's more like a stage. Not anyone performs on it, but I did perform on it. I stood in there and I just span around constantly for I think like 11 minutes or something. I don't know why we had such a long break, but we did. And I was just spinning around for 11 minutes. Slowly. I didn't get dizzy because I was doing it really slowly. Kind of like this. That slowly for 11 minutes. purely because people looked at me really weird, and it's funny. I don't know why, but as long as I entertain myself and a couple of other people, because the other people who were there with me, like because the teachers were out there and stuff, they knew exactly what I was doing because I told them what I was doing. I was saying, I'm gonna make people look at me in a weird way. And that's what I was doing, and so I just did it because it's funny. Whatever, I can do what I want. It's my legs. I can make them rotate the rest of me if I want to. So that's what that was about. And then I've also watched quite a bit of stuff this month. Before I talk about these films, I'll start about some other stuff. I watched this month the Owl House and Amphibia because I heard a lot of good stuff about them, and I watched them, and they were really good actually. I watched the Owl House first because originally that was the only one I was intending to watch because I heard about the it had problems with Disney and Disney cancelled it. That's really what you get for working with Disney. Don't take your good ideas to Disney. They're going to bugger it up somehow. But basically, I watched that. I already was annoyed with Disney before I even watched it. I didn't give a crap about the actual show. I was just annoyed that Disney was mucking things up for a fellow artist. But then I actually watched it, and now I'm even more annoyed. Because you can't you can't pay off to 40 episodes of setup in just 3 episodes, because Disney's only given them 3 episodes, which they're going to be double length episodes, so it's effectively 6 episodes. But they were originally going to be 2 seasons. There was originally going to be 40 more episodes, and now they're only going effectively 6. And so there's this loads of stuff that's been set up, which they don't really have time to pay off anymore, which is really annoying. I really hope they probably were, but I really hope what I would do is I'd just completely rebel against Disney. I'd just be like, no, you're not making it then. I'd just make it independently. There'd probably be a load of legal problems, but whatever. The people are going to be on your side anyway, so just make the show independently. I don't think they're in-house people at Disney doing it. I think they're just financing it, and then obviously it goes on Disney Channel. I think the animators and obviously all the voice actors, they're their own people. So most of it, and of course because of COVID, most of it was animated and done at home anyway. So you could just get in contact with the animators and the voice actors and do it all independently, do a proper season and release it on YouTube or something. Which obviously you wouldn't get as much money, but it shouldn't be about the money. I don't know if it is. I don't think it is. Shows that good usually aren't made for the money. And so I just advise them. They're not going to listen, and this is never going to reach them. But I advise you to just make it anyway. Just do it behind Disney's back. Just make however many episodes you want to make and put them on YouTube, and people will be on your side. Even if Disney isn't on your side, then even if you get sued for every penny you ever get, in my opinion, it'd be worth it because you got to make the show properly. But obviously that unfortunately probably isn't going to happen because people are scared of Disney, and I don't blame them because Disney has a lot of money and a lot of hitmen probably. Like it's like meant to be the happiest place on earth, Disneyland. It's like I wonder how many murders have gone on there. I know several deaths have taken place at Disneyland, and Disney's covered them all up. If that tells you something, done it. But yeah, and Amphibia was alright as well. The Owl House is better though, I have to say. But they're both very good. Okay, so now on to the things I've watched this month. All these I watched before. I really should have done that at the end, but whatever, I don't care. So I watched Forbidden Zone 1980, which is effectively Oingo Boingo the movie, and it is probably the lowest budget film I've ever seen. Like literally all the sets are made out of paper and cardboard and stuff. There's a scene at the very early in the film where this guy stands on a table, and I'm surprised they were able to afford a table that wouldn't break under the pressure. They probably spent the entire film's budget on that table. But somehow, and it's so low budget that it had to be filmed in black and white, and then they colorized it rather than filming it in color because it would have been too expensive. Although the colorization was done a lot more recently. I think it was like 2008 or something like that. I don't know. So recently it was done. It was colorized. And whereas normally I'd be against that because this was kind of meant to be shot in color, but they simply couldn't afford it. Which also relates to a later film on the list as well, which I'll get to. But there was that, and that's a really good film. It's the weirdest film I've ever seen. That used to be The Holy Mountain. The Holy Mountain is like a Hollywood film compared to Forbidden Zone. It is the weirdest film I've ever seen, but I love it, and I intend to watch it hundreds of more times in my life, even though I've only watched it once. The next film I watched was South Park: The Streaming Wars. It's not a film, it's a special, really. Just released. the quality is really, really starting to drop now. It's really going back to the way it was, like season 20 quality. I did not enjoy it at all. It just, I think there was like one good joke in it, and I can't remember it. No, it wasn't that. It was the Ricky Gervais thing I was thinking of that had one good joke in it. The Ling Ling Hello joke. But this, not one good joke in it. Really didn't like it. Just, And from what I've seen of the preview of the next one isn't going to be any better. So that's that, unfortunately. Next film I watched was If, quadruple period, from 1968, which is, I believe, Malcolm McDowell's first film role, and the film that led him to being cast in A Clockwork Orange, and I really enjoyed this. It suffers from partly the same thing that Forbidden Zone was, where it was partly filmed in black and white. This one, most of it's in colour, but bits of it in black and white. And the reason they shot it in black and white is because they ran out of money and they couldn't afford it. At least that's what I think. There are several conflicting reports, but one of them, and the one that I believe the most, is that they just basically ran out of money and that they had to film the rest of it in black and white. And there was something to do with the lighting. It would have been too expensive to light certain scenes properly for colour, and so they just had to resort to filming it in black and white. And that is, normally it wouldn't be if the entire thing was in black and white, it wouldn't be a problem, but I do find it a bit of a problem because it kind of takes you out of the film whenever it switches between black and white and colour. A lot of, in fact, all, apart from one, of Andrei Tarkovsky's films do that as well. But with them, it doesn't really take you out, because it reminds you that it's taking place in like a different time period or something like that, or a different place, or sometimes it's like a dream inside the characters' heads, and then in reality it'll be in colour, dream will be black and white, that kind of thing. And so there it works, and you can never really get that into an Andrei Tarkovsky film. It always keeps you at a distance, it's always very surreal and kind of, there. But If feels very real. It feels like it's a film of something that actually happened until the end, where it goes all weird. But the majority of the film is just set inside a school, and I imagine it's a very realistic portrayal. Of course, I never went to that kind of school, because that kind of school didn't exist by the time I existed. And I'm very happy about that, because I would have gotten my arse battered if I had. But whatever. I never understood it, because, like all this corporal punishment stuff, I've never understood why people just like, if a teacher tried to hit me, I don't care if it was the 60s, and respect. Bugger respect, right? If a teacher tried to hit me, I'd hit them. It doesn't matter. They say, you have to have respect for them. Well, they don't have any respect for me if they're trying to hit my bottom with a big bit of wood. Trying to whip me. That's not exactly respectful, is it? Why should I respect them? I'd grab the whip off them and whip them in their eyes, so that they couldn't fight back because they'd be blinded. So that's what I would do. So it's very lucky, not just for me, but lucky for the teachers that I didn't go to that kind of school. But other than the fact that the black and white takes you out every now and again, because it switches between black and white and colour, even if it's taking place. Sometimes in the middle of a scene, it'll switch from black and white to colour, or colour to black and white, and that kind of takes you out. But apart from that, which isn't the filmmaker's fault, it's the budget's fault, it's a really good film. Next, I rewatched The Adventures of Baron Munchausen from 1988, which I felt was it's a Terry Gilliam film, his follow-up to Brazil. I never gave it much of a chance before. I still enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much. And I realised that it wasn't on my list, because I have a film list of best films ever, and I realised I hadn't put it on there for some reason. I guess I watched it before I started the list. And so I watched it again, and it's obviously on the list now. And it's very good. I think I've talked about it before, but I might not have. I think I have, though. But it's very good. And it has Robin Williams in it, and some people from Brazil in it. Next, I watched Aguirre, or Aguirre, or Aguirre. I don't know. I think it's Aguirre, but I don't know how you pronounce it. The Wrath of God, from 1972. Another Werner Herzog film. Very good. It got Klaus Kinski in it, who's a brilliant actor, even if he was completely mental. It was very good. And then skipping all the stuff I listened to all the stuff in between these, and the final, I suppose, sort of film. It's not really a film, but it's kind of a film. I watched a Fleetwood Mac concert from the Mirage Tour, 1982. I'd been watching a clip from this for ages. The performance of "Not That Funny," which is a song off Tusk, the 1979 double album, which is my favourite Fleetwood Mac album that I've heard. And there's only 3 that I haven't heard. The latest 3, 2 from the 90s and 1 from the 2000s, which are probably going to be the worst, I would imagine. Aside from maybe the first 2 albums, especially Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Wonderful is awful. It's just the same song over and over again. It's not even that good. But this was really good. I watched the Not That Funny performance, which is 10 minutes, and it's just really good. So much better than the album version. The album version was already my favourite song on the album, but it's not anymore because of this. If they'd done this live version for the album, it would be my favourite song, but I love this performance. It's so good. If you're not going to watch any of this, or not even going to watch the full concert, watch the performance of Not That Funny from this concert. It's so good. Moving on to the albums that I've listened to. I've listened to all of their 70s albums and their 80s albums this month. All of them are pretty much really good. Kiln House is... well, I mean, not all of them are really good, but all for the 70s. Well, I'll just go through. Kiln House from 1970. I can't remember much about. I can't remember a single song from it, but I think I enjoyed it. I don't know. 1970. First one to... It's not the first one to involve Christine McVie, actually, but she did paint the cover art, which is pretty good. Pretty good cover art. It's the best thing about the album, cover art. Next one, Future Game from 1971, is the first one to include Christine McVie in a vocal, or at least a lead vocal setting. I think she'd backup vocals in Kiln House, and she'd been playing the piano for them since Mr. Wonderful. But this is the first one to include her as vocals. The song Morning Rain is really good. One of the best Fleetwood Mac songs ever, actually. But I really love that. Christine McVie really is probably the best member of Fleetwood Mac as far as a songwriting perspective goes. All her songs, like literally, a lot of these albums, I would probably never listen to again if it wasn't for... Or at least all their albums from 1971, Future Games to Heroes Are Hard to Find, I'd probably never listen to again if it wasn't for the fact that the Christine McVie songs on them all are really good. But so, Future Games, I would recommend... If I have to recommend at least one song from every album, some will obviously be more and some of the entire album. But Future Games, I would recommend Morning Rain, really good song, one of the best Fleetwood Mac songs. From Bare Trees, 1972... I really like the cover for Bare Trees because it's very minimalistic and I really like it. 2 songs from that. Another Christine McVie song, Spare Me a Little of Your Love, very good. And a song, Sentimental Lady by Bob Welch, I think Welch, Bob Welch, who was the American in the group from 1971 to 1974. And then he was replaced by 2 more Americans who you may know, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. They're the Americans in the band from 75 to now. Although Lindsey Buckingham left just a few years ago, actually, unfortunately. I think he was fired. Pretty disrespectful for one of the main members of your band for the last 40 years, but they fired him and it's up to them. Whatever. But so for Bare Trees, I'd recommend Sentimental Lady and Spare Me a Little. For Penguin, 1973, I can't remember much about, to be honest, but I know I enjoyed it. Let me look at the songs on here. There's a couple. Dissatisfied and Did You Ever Love Me are really good. Listen to them. Mystery to Me was my favourite up to the point I listened to it. I'm pretty sure every single song on the album I added to my list, but there's only really one I can still remember now, and that's Forever, and because I listened to it. Forever is the only Fleetwood Mac song I've heard to use an electronic, like a drum machine, as opposed to Mick Fleetwood drumming. Although Mick Fleetwood still, he does occasional sort of, what's it called? Fills and stuff like that. But the main is a drum machine, and it works really well. And the bass stuff going on in Forever is really good as well. So Mystery to Me, I would recommend Forever. Heroes Are Hard to Find. I would recommend. It has a really weird album cover. It's Mick Fleetwood, who is a very strange looking individual, but he looks very nice. Not particularly in that cover there. He's rather distorted. But the song Come a Little Bit Closer, again a Christine McVie track, is very good. And then we come to the trilogy, which I've already talked about. The Fleetwood Mac 75, Rumours 77, and Tusk 79. That kind of trilogy of their best album. Most people consider them best albums. I certainly do as well. And certainly the best of the Buckingham and Nick's relationship going on in those albums. Tusk is my favourite of the three. Tusk is my favourite Fleetwood Mac album. I love it very, very much. But they're all those three especially are really good. But I've already talked about them, so I'm not going to talk about them in much detail. And I'd recommend listening to all. There isn't a bad song on any of those three albums, so listen to them all. Then we get to Mirage, 1982, and their first of their two 80s albums. And it's okay. I think it's better than any of their pre-Fleetwood Mac 75 albums. But it's much worse than the trilogy, the Fleetwood Mac Rumours Tusk trilogy. And then Tango in the Night, which, excluding their first two albums, Fleetwood Mac 68 and Mr. Wonderful also 68. This is probably my least favourite of their albums. It's very commercial, very kind of. I'm pretty sure like half the songs or something like that were singles. Ridiculous. No, it's not. There's 12 songs. I'm pretty sure only like 4 of them are singles, but still, stop releasing singles of the album. Like, you don't need that. Like, just release one single or two. Well, you need a second side, so 2 singles, obviously. But it's alright. A couple of songs, Everywhere, which is a song I was already on my list for ages. I mean, on my playlist, which I really like. And Little Lies is probably my favourite Fleetwood Mac song at the moment. But apart from those 2 songs, the rest of it I'm not particularly happy with. And that's the last album I listened to this month. I haven't listened to their 90s or 2000 album yet. One of those doesn't even, it's not barely a Fleetwood Mac album. It's literally the only relation it has to Fleetwood Mac it has the Fleetwood, it has the Mac, and it has Christine McVie. So I suppose it has as much to do with Fleetwood Mac as the Future Games to Heroes Are Hard to Find, but still it doesn't really feel, because it doesn't have. Once Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined the band, having them not in it, it doesn't really feel like Fleetwood Mac anymore. It is, but it doesn't feel like that. Tango in the Night is the last one to feature the main lineup. Until, of course, they came back when they reunited in, I think, 1997. Again, 10 years after, and it's been them, really, ever since. So that's all the albums I've listened to this month. Now BBC News stuff going on. I'm gonna fly through this because I'm really not in the mood for news, but you know, guess I have to. Got this kid murdered. Sad. Boris being a Boris. Whatever. Ukraine stuff. Whatever. Trans people exist and we are in Ghana. I couldn't give less of a crap. You're ill, go and get help, please. For your own good. Shut up, Kanye West. No one gives a crap about you. No one gives a crap about sports. BBC News, YouTube channel, loop doop doo. School shooting, Ukraine, China. Johnny Depp, whatever. Shut up, Trump. You're not the president anymore. No one gives a crap about you. La 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 la. La 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 la. Ne 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 me 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 me. Criticizes mad Russia sanctions. I'll tell you who's mad. You're mad, you bald git. Just die already. Can someone just kill him? It's not that difficult. You just put a bullet in his head. I'm not a violent person, and I would never normally excuse murdering someone. But when that person is the head of a country, and you know that if you put them in prison, which is the ideal, like if there's a prison which was completely inescapable, like you seal him in a concrete box and dump him in the ocean, that kind of thing, then I would say go for it, that's what he deserves. But when you know that he can escape from prison, which he can, he's the president of, you know, of one of the biggest countries, probably one of the most powerful countries in the world, you know you could escape from any prison. So the only thing that you can do, which will be a permanent punishment, is to kill him. So can someone shoot him, please? Anyway, blah 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 blah. Can you stop talking about the school shooting? It's as if there's any, like, there's only one solution and you're not going with it. So Supreme Court ruling expands US gun rights. Oh, that's what we need. Yeah, we need an expansion on the gun rights. We definitely don't need a retraction. That's allowing people more guns is definitely gonna make school shootings happen less. That's a logical discussion. Honestly, the Americans just deserve this at the moment. Just like, if you want your children to live, get rid of guns. It's that simple. But you don't, evidently. Abortion rights, people want to kill their children. I'm too tired to argue against it right now. You can't fight. I can quote the Owl House with this. You can't argue with stupid. So that's that. Or you can't argue with crazy, I think is the exact thing. What does Disney have to do with abortions? What does Disney have to do? Jesus Christ. Oh, there's been another beheading, has there? Yay. The Muslims, aren't they such lovely people? I really like the Muslims. They're such lovely people. Wink, 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 nudge, nudge, nudge. I forgot to put the sock on the microphone, but it's nearly done now, so I don't care. Blah, blah, blah. That's all. CNN News. Oh, look. Stuff happening. Wow. Great. Lovely. Disney apologizes to couple after employee spoils their... I saw that video. But just, like... I'd have punched the guy in the face. If I was... I mean, obviously that's never going to happen because I don't intend to get married. I don't really like people, so why would I do that? That'd be mental, wouldn't it? But if the day that ever comes and I happen to... Firstly, I'd never do it in a public place. What the hell? But if I were to do it in a public place... If the stars were to align and I was to want to get married and propose in a public place and someone dared to interrupt, I would break their nose. Especially if it was on camera. Because that'd just be, you know. Woman becomes New York legend after booting possum. It's not an opossum, it's a possum. They wouldn't name... Let me get this. Do you think they'd name an entire film after a misspelling? No, they wouldn't. It's not an opossum. It's a possum. Sorry, Paul, I knocked you over. No, it's not Paul, it's Tom. Sorry. Paul, I don't even think I have Paul as a figurine. I have Tom though. Why would you get rid of the possum? I'd welcome any possum if I was running a pub. Which evidently I'm not, but if I were to. Fewer guns, safer communities. Oh, really? That's weird, isn't it? It's almost as if that's obvious. Mind this guy throws a cake at Mona Lisa. I saw that. That's such stupid. Like, honestly, I don't care. I couldn't care less. To be fair, the Mona Lisa is incredibly overrated, but it doesn't deserve to have a cake thrown at it. It's still a good painting, objectively speaking, you know, like from technically speaking. Lawmaker pulls out weapons on webcam. I can do whatever I want with my guns. I like how this lawmaker, that's terrifying. That this guy who is literally insane enough. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final most essential command. George Orwell. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Guns are stupid. It's really simple. Get rid of them, and less people will die. It's that. It's really not difficult. It's so very simple. People won't be shot if there's no guns. It's not a difficult concept to wrap your head around. But then again, they are American, so you can't obviously, you know, you can't really blame them. It's not their fault they're American. Very few Americans are able to understand how stupid they are, and luckily some of them have actually reformed, luckily, but very few. The majority of Americans are completely... Justin Bieber says one side of his face is paralysed. If that means that he can't sing anymore, then thank God for that. Let's hope the other side of his face gets paralysed as well. Why does why does CNN upload? So that's weird, isn't it? How we call it the BBC, but we don't call it the CNN. Weird, that, isn't it? But why does BBC upload so often? Like, anyway. And finally answering. So now I can get to answering your question, Digby. Did you listen to the songs I suggested to you a while back? Not really. Sorry. I can transition back. No. It's that. Yeah. Not really. If you could go back to any time period, what time period would you go back to and why? It depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing music or filmmaking, I'd probably go back to the late 60s, early 70s, that kind of era, and do stuff there. If I'm making, like, if I'm doing painting, I'd probably go back to, like, the 20s. or the 50s. Like the 20s is when surrealism was really starting to happen. And if it's abstract expressionism, I'd go to the very early 1950s in New York, because that's when the abstract expressionists were birthed, and I'd be one of them. It wouldn't be the irascible 18, it'd be the irascible 19, and I'd be one of them, yeah. And what's your favourite country flag? Brazil. I don't know why. There was a thing at school, like we had this like thing, this I can't remember what you call it, but this thing that we had to do. We each had to do a thing on a country, and I was given Brazil. I didn't pick Brazil. I was given Brazil, and ever since then, I've just really liked the Brazilian flag. I don't know why. I really like it. It's kind of geometrical, but it's also got quite a bit of detail as well, with like the little stars and stuff. And I think the stars actually relate to like I don't know if you call them states in Brazil, but what the Americans would call states and what the British would call counties, whatever the Brazilians call them, I think the stars relate to those. I think, I could be wrong, but I think that's what they're for. And so it's a bit like the American flag. One thing, as much as I hate America, one thing I do like about them is how the flag relates to the country, like the number of stripes relates to the number of states that they had when it was first founded, and the number of stars on the blue bit relates to the number of states they have now. I've always liked that about it. And so it's kind of like, it's like the American flag, except rather than relating to a stupid country, it relates to a better country. There's still a lot of murders in Brazil, but at least it's a nicer country to look at. At least I feel like if I went to Brazil, provinces, that's it. I think that's what, thank you. At least if in Brazil, I may be murdered, but at least I'd enjoy it at the time, you know? If I went to America, I'd be being murdered and I'd just be miserable because it's like, oh, America, you know? But at least in Brazil, I'd be having fun. There's parties and stuff. It's a really like lively place. A lot of artists go there. Howard Hodgkin, no, he went to India. That's racist. And India is actually another country I really want to go to. So, but Brazil, really fun place that I want to go to. And if I were to be murdered there, at least I'd enjoy myself, you know? But anyway, I didn't think you were still here, Digby, but thank you for sticking around. I hope you've enjoyed the month, this live stream, and I hope you enjoy the following month. In fact, I hope you enjoy your entire life. Have a nice life. But I will see you next month, if not sooner. So, goodbye.